So, Daithí, welcome back to the Handshake, where I approach conversations with all my guests from the perspective of the organizational psychologist, the educationist, the coach, the mediator, and above all, the provocateur, who'll ask the questions that others seem afraid to ask, but my curious mind can't help it. So this week we're on blog 10. Maybe the last of the blogs. I don't know. Navigating the New Frontier, AI Singularity in Education, unmasking the futuristic elephant in the room. So welcome, Daithí, and please bring in your elephant.
Arisht Gurov, Mila Mahagat.
The Bolsherud.
Je vous remercie. Dankeschön. I can put them all and whatnot, but the thing is, this is our 11th. And thank you so much. The questions that you ask each week always, I love them because we don't prepare and it's an open discussion. But the elephant in the room, if you look behind me, you will see is that sense of how is this whole AI and singularity looking now as we take all of the blogs together into the so-called future of now? Because with AI, and this week gone by, I've had so many conferences and so many engagements with incredible people all over the world. And the reality is, when we talk about the future, we think of the future. From an AI perspective, the future is now. So the elephant this time is an eclectically beautiful, star-studded, multimodal, sparkly, one might even say Chavarsky, if that's the word they use, I don't know, I'm not into that kind of things, but all these diamond glittery stuff elephants, because it always is a situation where no one knows what the future holds. And the reason being is the future is now. So therefore, taking all of the policy, taking all of the procedure, taking all the governance, taking the sense of what we've been dealing with in all the other 10 blogs, including 9A, taking on the new launching of the essence of what Europe has done during the last week, of the new mega computers of 200 billion being invested to bring Europe, the whole idea of the launch of Mistral AI, the new LLM in Europe, now that we've got DeepSeek gone, now that we have the new versions of ChatGPT 75.6 coming out, now that we have all of these new existing LLMs, open AIs, now gone on steroids, we're going to look at the elephant, which is saying the future of now.
Wow. And in that race, do we know where we will end? We don't. And that is the question mark over it all. Now, let's launch into the questions. In your introduction, while the introduction positions ASI as, to quote you, poised to irreversibly disrupt education, it simultaneously calls for ethical governance. Isn't this a fundamental contradiction? How can we meaningfully govern for something we're characterizing both as inevitable and irreversible?
The only way you can do that is simple. Go back to who we are. We are human beings. And whether we like it or not, remember we spoke last week about what were the definitions of a game?
Absolutely.
The game has the beginning and an end. It has to have at least two players, and it has to have rules.
That's not a referee. Where is the referee in this?
No, it doesn't have to have a referee.
No?
No, okay. It doesn't. But thank you for putting in a beautiful word. Governance is now a referee. So welcome to your major addition to blog 10, the referee in the room. If we think as human beings, the only thing, because it's advancing so quickly, the agentic AI, the difference between agent and agentic, which we've explained, if we don't have governance which is everything that ensures that what we're now looking at is founded in the research, in the citation, in the reference, in the procedure, in the frameworks like UNESCO or OECD or EU AI Act, or indeed the 100 different AI procedures that were there in the United States that were wiped out from the face of the earth last week, but which certain people did compile and send out to all of us as a historical document, so that maybe in 4 years' time they will come back in as this historical Bible of Genesis. The fact is, governance is the one thing that human beings can always go back to bring the definition of game, GAIME, into some form of manner in which we as humans can have the human AI-ology there to ensure we have everything from data protection in education to ensuring that we have non-bias, to ensuring the protection of all aspects of what even the pyramid in the EU AI Act has put out there so we can achieve it. So governance is vital as we move forward. But I hear you. How can you bring in governance for something which does not yet exist? You don't think of it that way. You think of governance, but beware, not governance to stop, to block, to inhibit. Governance to guide.
The guardrails, yeah.
Ever evolving. It's vital, Teresa, vital.
Absolutely. But the grown-ups in the room have to speak. And it's moving at such a pace now, we run the risk, humanity runs the risk of going on the tide of that pace. Unquestionably.
So, tsunami.
The text frames human agency and AI advancement as potentially antagonistic forces, either equitable human-centered learning or human obsolescence. What empirical evidence supports this binary framing? And doesn't this oversimplified dichotomy risk hampering nuanced policy discussion about AI integration in education in the first place?
Yes, of course it does. But if we don't have, from day one that I've started writing these, the first hashtag I've always put in is hashtag AI debate. Everywhere you see that I've had the privilege of sharing this story, these stories, sharing these experiences, sharing these blogs, it's all about hashtag the continuous AI debate. Everything you've spoken about is the Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, the spoonful of sugar, the diabetes. Why? Because agentic AI is algorithmic 0-1 binary. We have to therefore understand that everything we do and are and say has to be looked at through the lens of possibility or probability, good or other. As I said, the Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker. So in education in particular, we now, with Article 4 in particular, having come in February the 2nd, now we need to ensure as a deployer or anyone who in any way is offering any form of AI at all must adhere to the governance of Article 4, which is the direction or the flow. Maybe the best way to put it is this, Teresa, and it's dreadful. We're in the bloody tsunami, we're in a fishing boat, and we actually do have a rudder. So we've got to point the rudder to hopefully stay ahead of the wave so that, like you often see in a surfer, we're surfing that wave to keep ourselves ahead of what is a tsunami? A dangerous thing, but eventually the tsunami will run out its energy. AI is that tsunamic earthquake of a volcano, but we have a rudder. And that rudder we need to use. We can't see ourselves to be at the behest of there. Can't be done.
We've got to take our head out of the sand, though, as humanity in general.
Well, 11 blogs later, no one is engaging with us to even look at the elephant in the room because most people are happy to take the spoons full of sugar. And an interesting one I spoke to EdTech Ireland about last night. And I was also on with some European universities yesterday. Over 95% of all AI agents that are available to education right now, the spoonful of sugars, tools, have never, ever been founded in any form of ethical governance. They are there as a quick buck financial win. They are a mean of doing it. So
So dangerous
therefore,
because they're hitting at the base our young information, who are the workers of tomorrow, who are society of tomorrow.
who
And
are the
that is,
creatives of tomorrow.
yes, and that is serious. That is serious.
And all the research is showing this. And the fact is, because it makes quick money, you're throwing out an agent which has not even looked at, for example, even Article 4, the protection of the student data. It is vulnerable and it's volatile. And once someone said to me yesterday, every single thing you write at any time on any form of AI becomes your historical footprint. It is there. There is no hiding. So what you are and what you do is there as an historical footprint, fingerprint, DNA.
On me. Oh my.
It's there.
The landscape from automation to agentic AI. This piece in your blog. Now, as AI evolves from automating tasks to actively shaping educational pathways, what safeguards can ensure that optimization of educational outcomes that you speak of doesn't inadvertently standardize learning at the expense of human diversity and neurodivergent approaches to knowledge acquisition?
With agentic AI, that's impossible. Because remember, an agent, AI agent is there to do what it says in the tin. Open a tin of beans, you get the beans. Agentic AI is open the tin, and it is ever evolving, ever changing, ever learning for you. Oh, I don't want beans, I want peas. Oh, they'll change to peas. I want beans and peas. So the agentic AI, for example, if you take the future of AI in education, it's an adaptive learning platform, adaptive, readaptive, rechanging. It's multimodal in content integration, and will keep changing that multimodality to personalize it for you. It will be culturally sensitive in content, but that's where the governance comes in. But the non-bias, by the way, which so many AIs are biased right now, because of the agentic AI, we have to be careful of that sensitivity, of cultural sensitivity within the content, of it being non-biased, and that personalized cognitive companion, which is all AIs acting as personal learning guides, bringing us on a journey within our capacity to not be standardized in the what I would call the standardization of frameworks that are, I do 13 years in school, I do an exam for 2.5 hours, and my life depends on that. And then to bring you into an XR, which is beyond AR and VR, but into an immersive environment of virtual tours, so that it is driven within your personalized pace, capacity, creativity, empathy, to do this for you. And that's what agentic AI is doing, will do, and will continue to do, as even AI will become a cultural mediator. And we see this in Google's lookout for the visually impaired students already, Teresa.
What is the cost? So what is the cost? There's a cost to the human in this. What is the cost?
The cost of the human is that we have to be willing, at times, in my opinion, just like in the film, I suppose, The Shawshank Redemption, we have to sometimes just fall on our knees, lift up our hands, and let the rain fall on us and not worry about getting pneumonia. We sometimes have to just go to the top of the waterfall and trust ourselves as a beautiful species to know that we have something that AI does not have. Nor, I'm going to be shot here, do I believe ever will have. The capacity for unconditional love. The capacity for unconditional empathy. The capacity in critical thinking to be so creatively beautiful. These traits that make us specially human, I don't believe we may emulate them. We may create the algorithm to be like them. But as human beings, unconditional love and empathy, creativity within the critical sphere of who we are, we have to trust those
We, the human, must recognize our uniqueness and the beauty of the human species.
And
our
not be
divinity.
afraid to fall. Because in the end of the day, who turns off the electricity? You might say the AI can do it with the switch. Literally speaking, the human of the human AIology has to understand that there's nothing to fear as long as we are looking at things from the lens of who we are. And I think the importance of governance can never now be overstated as we move into agentic AI. And this is not just agentic AI in education. Agentic AI in business, agentic AI in biopharma, agentic AI in war games and so many other things.
We'll find out. Huh? Personalised learning at scale, the AI tutor revolution. You've written about that and you've given 2 case studies, Singapore's AI-powered smart nation and you've the US Department of Education highlighting that AI's potential to identify at-risk students through real-time data analysis guides interventions before significant academic setbacks occur. So, while AI promises unprecedented personalisation in education, how do we reconcile the inherent paradox of using standardized metrics of improvement and inequality reduction to validate what should be a uniquely individual learning journey?
Well, now you've just raised the biggest question that's out there right now, which is how do we actually assess? And the reality is that the powers that would be, those that have been there for thousands of years, do not wish to leave go the old horse, the old elephant in the room, which is you take water in a trunk, you lift it up, you spit it out. And the water therefore gives life. And that's how assessment very often is done. You go, you study, spend your time, you do your exam, it's marked, basically using systems. So how do you do it? All's changed utterly. A terrible beauty needs to be born here. It all needs to work. But until such times that happens, and the only way it will happen is once again to look at how we can bring in a sense of governance to do this. Because, Teresa, and now I'm going to give you the results of yesterday's research, which was done in the actual engineering degree in the United Kingdom yesterday. People, Google it. Engineering final exam degree. Questions were fed into DeepSeek and into OpenAI chat yesterday and in the last week. The average mark of 4th-year students in their final degree here is coming in around 66.2%.
Yeah.
These were given the questions without tutorials, without access to the tutorials. They were given the questions of the final exam as a document.
Right.
ChatGPT scored 92% and DeepSeek scored 95% in the exams as, and by the way, marked in the traditional manner by the professors in university. So I rest my case. The open AIs as we know it, the answer, the question that was asked, by the way, I forgot to say, my apologies, was, can OpenAI take an engineering degree in university? And the answer was, they can qualify as an engineer, never having looked at one tutorial. I rest my case.
In far less time. Absolutely. Agentic AI as the cultural mediator. Okay, so how does the idealistic vision of AI-enabled global educational unity confront the reality that knowledge itself is inherently shaped by natural sovereignty, cultural contexts, and local power structures? Aren't we attempting to standardize what is fundamentally unstandardizable?
Holy God, that's the opposite of what you said. Because to me, the whole aim of a lot of countries and systems around the world is to standardize education. so that it can be assessed in the end. The agentic AI is trying to blow that up and say the personalized education, so it's more inclusive, culturally adaptive, cross-cultural, collaborative, multilingual, the whole idea of equitable opportunity and accessibility, as opposed to what many would say in education right now, which is biased towards certain groups. It's implemented in certain ways so that it can be assessed. The teacher's role is very specific in all of this, as in being the sage on the stage in many ways. It is resource intensive by curriculum books. And where you come down to concerns, there are none, because at the end you do your exam, it's corrected by professionals who are paid to do so. You get your result, you go to university, and you're intelligent.
Let me state the question in a different way. In positioning AI as a cultural mediator and teaches its guides to global perspectives, aren't we fundamentally misunderstanding culture itself, treating it as content to be translated rather than lived experience bound to sovereign identities and power structures that resist standardization?
Oh, yeah, it's culture. The fact is, I remember reading an article recently. They said, now the Patrick's Day is coming, we'll have the Irish culture. What's Irish culture? Go into the pubs, do the dance, play the music, do the dance, do this, do that. Hold on a second. Culture is not something which you can just define. Culture is something which is the air that you breathe. It is who you are and what you are. It is the essence of each person. And that's why if you have an agentic AI, and let's say just like doing that engineering exam, that it can seek out and search and look at all the various pieces that are written in trillions of permutations within a matter of megaseconds, then it can look at things that are culturally sensitive, culturally biased, and can actually look to recalibrate those biases in a manner in which the personalized journey of education is presented to you. And I can tell you this much. I actually believe agentic AI in that case it would be a hell of a lot more effective than many of the classrooms we're in today, where there's an Irish saying which says, is few nod the nolach, and nod is as good as a wing to a blind horse. And sometimes what you would say to a student, for example, imagine your students in front of you. Well done there, Teresa. That was a fantastic answer you given the thing there. Mary, how's it going? That comment alone is basically after taking Mary clean out of the game. And if you don't mind me saying so, it's after setting Teresa up for a baiting after school.
I know.
God help Teresa if she can't play camogie like Mary. She's a dead woman on the field. By the way, listeners, camogie is the game in Ireland, which is the female version of our hurling, where we play 30 people on a field with a small little ball. And the Americans said it's like 30 people going to war with helmets on them and no one getting killed.
So AI and neuroadaptive learning technologies, from supportive tools to cognitive enhancers. So in a neuroadaptive learning environment where AI directly interfaces with human cognition, this is my bugbear. How can we distinguish between genuine cognitive advancement and AI-dependent performance enhancement? Aren't we at risk of creating a measurement paradox where we can no longer separate human capability from artificial augmentation?
We have a wonderful comedian in Ireland called Tommy Tiernan. And if you don't know him, listeners, go in and Google. And if Tommy is there, how's it going, Tommy? Tommy used to have a great joke about the idea of he goes for a race somewhere in Ireland against all the Kenyan runners. And he togs out and he never ran a race in his life. And he runs down the road and he says after a couple of 100 yards, he jumps into the ditch. Because the fact is the lads are so good. The thing is, there's a thinking out there should be three forms of Olympics. There should be the ordinary Olympics. There should be the drug Olympics. And now there should be the AI enhanced Olympics. The fact is, Teresa, that people are watching every day in their news now. People, for example, in Ireland last night, who hasn't seen in 20 years, had a special gene put in to remove the jelly on the eye because of a degenerative disease. For the first time in 20 years, the man was actually able to see. We have people now whose spinal cord was severed, who are now walking with the assistance of what we call robotic because of the chip and AI that's in them. We can see incredible developments right now that are being brought together that would never have happened before. So the fact is, you can get neural implants right now for people who are differently abled or disabled, who can now communicate with the world because the bridge is the AI for them to interact. And I will tell you this much, if you're one of those people, you're not asking the question you're asking right now, because probably for the first time in your life, you have gone from being disabled
to enabled,
i.e. differently abled, to now being able. But here's the question. Look at the guy that was playing chess last year, the young fella, who basically had an implant, shall we say, that when certain things happened, it left off a buzz and he knew where to move things. And this was the allegation. If you have a situation whereby you have any form of neural implant in AI, then of course you now turn yourself into the people's vision of the universal soldier, the perfect robot, the perfect killing machine. And that is all feasible and possible. And if you're a mother who has 5 sons of the age of going to war, and you were told they're going to go to war, or 5 robots will go, I tell you this much as a mother, you'll send the 5 robots because they will be there for design. So this is a very, very, very dangerous development that AI is bringing into the neural capacity of what can happen to the human being becoming an augmented.
Yes, that's the
and
thing.
That's where Tommy
That's the
Tiernan will
direction.
talk about the augmented or the drug Olympics or beyond that. This is a very dangerous, and I'm going to use the word that I'm very careful to use because it means so many things in so many different continents. There are huge possibilities for very unethical, non-governance ways of using AI that go beyond Darth Vader in this area.
And used as an instrument of control and mass control. It's a, I think the question forces us to confront whether we're potentially creating a system that validates its own existence by making AI enhancement the default metric.
Well, you go back to dystopian sense of Orwell right now again, and the whole idea of this time every child who's born has a little implant that can be controlled, and now we're into all of these films.
We're heading
well, this is the argument that's out there. But the fact is, can I rephrase that? The potential for humanity to be inhumane again and to think that way is always there. And I would still say, please go back to our default of we're born ass naked, gummy and bald. And the fact is, let's not go nature nurture. Let's just presume that we are a beautiful species that has the capacity to do so much evil, sadly. And the Darth Vader Luke Skywalker # choices and options. Spoonful of sugar, diabetes.
Free will, absolutely. We must hold on to that, and we must hold on to our own agency. And let's say if we reach a point where certain advancements are mandated, that's when humanity is at war. Revolutionizing teacher roles, from instructors to AI supervisors. So when we frame teachers as AI supervisors and ethical gatekeepers, aren't we fundamentally mischaracterizing education as a process that can be disaggregated from human connection? And in so doing, aren't we creating a false dichotomy between efficient AI-driven instruction and the inherently inefficient but deeply human aspects of learning?
I think you have to look at the teacher's role. So I think that was blog 1 or 2, blog probably 2, which what I wrote in 2005.
It was around 3, I think. Yeah.
Yes, and then came into 2025. The whole idea here is we have to trust that if you have colleges of education, you're preparing teachers, again, for the society which does not yet exist. The various pedagogies and methodologies we used of being that center constructivist sage on the stage to now being a facilitator of using the tools to create learning environments, designing for learning. Curricula have to change. Frameworks of assessment need to change. And you see, the whole idea is that as AI supervisors, ethical gatekeepers, facilitators of student-led, project-based, place-based, cognitive inquiry-based learning, will again come back to, in my opinion, look at the creativity of the human being. Look at that creativity to develop that in a collaborative way, and the AI systems to fit in, to assist, to work with the human traits. And then it's essential for our educators to understand the difference between, again, I said, AI agents and agentic AI. And I mean, let's face it, Vygotsky in 2024 did it, but I've defined it myself so many times that we need to understand that things are ever changing. So we need to train our, educate our, guide our, educo, lead forward our learners to know that there isn't only just one way. They need to be ahead of this. And I wrote about this when I put about the idea of replicating AI. And I mean, Darling Hammond and others way beyond me in 2020 wrote about it again recently. But the fact is that we have to have AI-enhanced classrooms where teachers can deploy the personalized intelligent tutoring systems in a cross-cultural way, in a collaborative way, knowing that, for example, like an approach we do in AI for EDU, it's there to assist as a tool to help. But there's the humans need to be the person driving the car, who are utilizing whatever power is in that car to move it forward with the capacity to stop the car and get out and walk or run or sit or sleep. We're not at the behest of the car, of its movement forward. And that's what teachers, the whole change of the role will be, becoming even the professionals that they are to consummate, to change as the chameleon, ever changing, to ensure that we're ahead of what AI is. In other words, the choices and the options of the Luke Skywalker, hashtag equity of opportunity, hashtag AI for good, knowing that at all times the other is there.
There's got to be an openness to upskilling, and it's educating the educators.
Way beyond upskilling. This is a whole new game in town.
Learning. But unless it happens, it won't translate into currency on the ground, in the classrooms, and in the formation of our young.
Of course. Well, hey, again, there are none so blind as those who do not wish to see. The fact is, but it has to start right back. It has to start in the College of Education, the education centres all over Europe, and Europe itself, now that's building the mega computers, the 200 million being invested in the AI, so that we as a continent can do X, Y, and Z. We have to go back to the fact that Article 4 says that if we're a deployer of anything that's AI, we have to adhere to at least 7 or 8 governance issues before we even get to the start of the race. Anyone who's ever run a marathon, you know that it's all about your training, your preparation, your food, your gear, and everything. All of those things have to be in place. And even on the day, you still not guarantee. We cannot just turn up for a marathon and run it. There are some people who can, but by God, you'll pay.
What are the consequences for not adhering to the rules of the game?
Well, I'm going to go back to the other statement. What are the consequences of turning around and facing the tsunami wave that's coming at you with all the rudder in a little ship? And I rest my case, Your Honour.
Bold predictions, what lies ahead in AI Singularity Education. Okay, so you talk about the AI-driven credentialing and real-time competency tracking. How can we reconcile the concept of continuously evolving competency profiles with the very act of AI validation? Isn't this creating a system where human learning is perpetually measured against algorithmic benchmarks that themselves represent a fixed understanding of what constitutes knowledge and competence?
Not already what exists. It's not exactly what exists right now. I go to school for 13 years. This is an exam, and there's an algorithmic thing. Oh, sorry, there's a curriculum book there with a set of tick the boxes. Sorry, is the algorithm. Oh, wow, what's the difference? Hold on a moment. And therefore, isn't that what exists?
But you have the imperfect human element of in the learning process that as it evolves
Okay, and that's why we're now into micro-credentials, which, by the way, have been put out there quite a while in Europe. And it's amazing how many are fighting against this micro-credential, adaptive assessment, real-time evaluations that will redefine how student achievements are measured. In other words, you do something, you look at it, the traditional diplomas will be replaced, in my opinion, by this sense of micro-credentialing. And it will be validated by an AI system because, as human beings, the one thing the AI system will do, if it's culturally sensitive, is we'll also be able to see the creativity of the human being, because we're thinking of AI as it is now in the sense of an agent. But if it's agentic, it's constantly evolving, changing. It's adapting like the chameleon. And therefore, applications of knowledge in real world situations will make lifelong learning fluid. And that means that education will not be just brought down to, if I know this book, I will get 100%. It's a question of me being able to be creative in my answer, that algorithm, because it is constantly changing in singularity and is now adapting, readapting agentically, will be able to fit in with that. Now, that's a future prediction that I could end up being crucified for. But that's how I see micro-credentials evolving.
The kickback then is lack of knowledge, fear, inability to change, adversity to change. What is it?
Fear, I think, is simple. Everything in education is costing money. If you've invested billions of dollars, now you've got to basically put it aside and reinvest again. Look, the whole song goes, money makes the world go around, and whether we like it or not in education, it has been proven over and over again that those who have received the education under the traditional system, but the difference is AI doesn't care whether you're wealthy or not. AI is there for you, and it will basically take you as the person that you are, dealing with it in an agentic way, in a personalized journey, to basically micro-credentialize you so that it can have an AI-mediated emotional intelligence development, physical AI with hands-on learning, AI integration within the workforce development to prepare you in ways that are relevant to you as the genius you are, instead of the person that you're supposed to become after 13 years, even go to university. To me, the potential is incredible. But you brought it up. That can easily be controlled. And we end it with probably your next question, an ethical conundrum, which is the risks and the challenges.
I mean, we seem to have money to invest in war and arms, but we don't have money to invest in education. There's a whole, it's multi-layered what's going on, but unless we invest in this whole area, we are truncating the development of our young, who are the workforce and the society of tomorrow.
To ask AI how to make lots of money, two words will come up very often: bombs and bandages.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Now, you talk about AI-mediated emotional intelligence development. You say AI could help students develop emotional intelligence through simulations that replicate real-world social scenarios, such as conflict resolution or leadership tasks. And I've highlighted this. While AI, in brackets, presently lacks intrinsic empathy, it can simulate emotional responses to guide students through reflective exercises. And that comes from the World Economic Forum 2024. So how does simulating emotional intelligence through AI, a system fundamentally incapable of genuine emotion, how does this not create a form of emotional artifice that teaches students to perform rather than authentically feel and respond to human emotions?
Interesting. Anyone who's been trained as a teacher did certain thing in first year, a little bit in second year, which would be kind of the psychology of education. And everything was based on that. It's interesting. I read an article yesterday where people started, at long last, bringing the most incredible genius, Maria Montessori, back into AI.
Yes.
The whole idea is, the reason I say at present, AI at present, because the fact is we've heard so many bold predictions in life that have turned out to be wrong. The empathy is something, as a word, I was very careful using this in the blog because I knew that someone would bring it up. And who brought it up? We can create simulations or environments or scenarios where AI can combine, permutate, change, chameleonize, how does that lovely verb, in anything, a situation And by the way, never become bored of our answers, to create environments where we're trying to get the human being to use what I spoke about already with you, the capacity to change critically, creatively, to have these environments. And I believe myself that us in our empathy will do it. As AI goes forward, let there be no doubt, Teresa, that there will be AIs there that will attempt to emulate human empathy, that will be programmed in an algorithm which will try to see, experience what human empathy is, to bring it into the program. Because when we reach singularity, AI, which is it is already doing, will rewrite itself to be a better AI than it is. And that's happening. And people, a certain professor recently on a television program said that this is all dystopian, it's rubbish. Please, please, people, the elephant in the room, there are AIs there as we speak right now. Look it up, writing themselves and rewriting themselves, rewriting the codes of codes to make it better. So the fact is, we need to prepare, and I come back to the word you used at the start, we need to be culturally sensitive. We need to be governanced in the way that at least we are trying to educo, lead forward, ed tech even, in the way that at least allows us to play a part in this and not allow the AI to just take over and do what it's doing. Because if you do that, then we just might as well, give up right now.
It's a lethal combination, though, to have the intelligence and the know-how and the let's say the formula towards advancing AI, and to be in a position of power and governance and real power. But we'll move on. When we insert AI robotic systems as lab partners for young children, aren't we fundamentally misunderstanding the crucial role that messy, imperfect experimentation plays in cognitive development, and potentially creating a generation that learns to rely on artificial precision rather than developing the essential skills of trial, error, and natural discovery? Are we not basically robbing our young of the development of human agency unassisted by technology?
If you accept it exactly as you've said it right now, and the new system of education curricularly introduces that, then the answer, of course, is yes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you realize the vital importance of play in the human development of everything that we are as human, and we, again, as humans, take control of this journey of educo, and play is part of this collaborative thing that I've referred to in the AI as a tool, as an agentic tool, then what we're doing is getting the best of both worlds. We are continuing to develop. But if we give away our agency, we give away our power of that which makes us human, because let's face it, we often say, oh, your man is like the child who threw the baby out with the bathwater or threw the toys out of the creche. The importance of the baby, the bath water, the experience of being in that water, playing with water, the creche, the socialization, cognitive, personalised development of what people learn there. You must never, ever throw that out. Even the Department of Education and Skills in Ireland, in the summer camps of numeracy and literacy for children who are in disadvantaged schools, the most important words that are turning up are play and well-being. And these come from the human interaction. But AI is not against those. AI is not saying we don't want those. It is the human who will code or the governance that makes a decision. So my answer to you is this. Everything you've said is as much possibility as us continuing to be the human priority over the AIology, the human AIology. We make the decisions, choices, and options, Teresa. For God's sake, we make the decisions. Do not give away our agency and our power.
Yeah. So it brings me nicely to your part in the blog where you talk about the ethical conundrum, overcoming risks and challenges. How can we genuinely protect human agency in education when the very framework designed to safeguard it, from bias auditing to privacy regulations, are themselves increasingly dependent on AI systems to implement and monitor, creating a circular dependency where AI oversees its own ethical boundaries?
Funny enough, I want to go back to governance on this one, because the idea of the ethical conundrum, really, I suppose, if I take a look at UNESCO's framework, AI framework for teachers and students, it kind of highlights, if you want to put it, the key challenges of an ethical conundrum. The first one is bias and fairness. AI systems must be rigorously audited. This is coming back to governance, to prevent discrimination and to prevent this idea of how that bias / fairness against marginalized groups, tribal groups. We've seen recently at Paris how 2 particular countries decided not to sign that accord and to move outside, because the whole idea again of ching, 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 ching. The second idea that UNESCO's framework raises is the idea of data privacy. The robust regulatory compliance under the EU AI Act and GDPR must ensure that student data is protected and used ethically. And even the US Department itself in 2025 mentions that. But of course, that document has been taken down in the last couple of weeks here in the month of February 2025. And the last point that UNESCO brings up in the framework, again in this ethical conundrum, is what we call human agency. AI should support human decision making. It should not ever be looked upon as a replacement. And the whole idea is that AI's role in personalization must be carefully governed and managed so that students in education, or anyone in particular, remain empowered as the decision makers in their own learning journeys. And if that happens, then we take the conundrum out of the ethics. But Teresa, you can argue with me, what is the definition of ethics in any one continent to another? And I would bring it back to this. Forget about ethics, look at the human-centered personalization and their learning journey where they remain empowered and have agency.
Yeah, which we could go down another rabbit hole about empowerment and disempowerment and all of that goes with it. Looking at the counter-argument, the case against technological determinism, isn't the very framing of AI in education as something we must either critically or uncritically adapt? Is that not a false dichotomy that obscures a more fundamental question? Whether the algorithmic logic underlying all AI systems, even those we implement critically, inherently contradicts Freire's vision of education as liberation by imposing a mechanistic framework on human consciousness itself.
I suppose in 2019, Selwyn kind of came out with this idea of uncritical adoption risks with this digital divide. And not only that, but if you go back to even Freire, I suppose the whole idea of Freire is 1970, when he came out at that particular time with the critical pedagogy framework, that education should be a process of liberation, not subjugation to the idea of algorithmic logic. The key counterpoints I think we need to understand here, Teresa, I suppose in many ways are this. Human connection matters. We need to look at what this idea of techno-stress is doing right now and dependency. And we need to understand that we as humans need to depend on ourselves, as opposed to look at the idea of techno-stress, which is something that can really, really affect our overall well-being. And indeed, in 2021, Smith and others wrote a lot about that. And the idea also, if we give our governance over to algorithms, then I ask people to look this up. The black box nature of AI algorithms threatens transparency and accountability in all decision making. And therefore, you have transparency and trust and empathic guidance on one side. That's humanity. And you've got potential techno-stress and technological efficiency on the other side, which can become AI in education. And how do you balance the human and the AI roles? Transparency, trust, empathic guidance, potential techno-stress, and technological efficiency. We need to learn how to balance this. And the counter-argument would be that in reality, go back to what we know works and readapt that to the new environment in which we find ourselves. But don't regurgitate the same system of vomit, which is anti the idea of micro-credentialing, the whole idea of the journey of this exam is the only way to assess. This is how we do it.
The whole question of trust. Really, the question, where are we in terms of trust in this whole thing at the moment?
Well, we have to charter a human-centric future. The human must come first.
Charting a human-centric future, given that the very process of designing our relationship with AI requires us to frame human qualities like empathy, creativity, and moral reasoning in machine comprehensible terms, are we already ceding the fundamental nature of these qualities to algorithmic interpretation? And if so, can any future integration truly be human-centric when the very language of integration demands we translate humanity into a computation or in computational terms?
All I would say to this, and all I can do is share a story, is simple. It is my firm belief, as was the beginning in the very first blog. And again, I want to thank you for the bravery of being with Crazy Daithí on this, Daithai. God, my mother knew something I never knew about well over 65 years ago.
Ahead of ourselves, go on.
God, I'm getting ahead of myself now, aren't I? Oh, God forbid that anyone would put the word expert. I laugh at that, what it is. But the way forward, I believe, lies clearly now in blending AI's computational power, algorithmic power, with the unique, everyone, please, the unique human qualities of unconditional love, empathy, creativity, and first time I'm going to mention it, moral reasoning. Because if I mention only ethical, then it can mean something different. Sure. But the morality of humanity brings us to look at who we are. And the elephant in the room is not AI's potential to take over education or the world. But the elephant in the room is our willingness to take agency over who we are as humans and critically examine our roles in the whole future design of technology, so that technology is powerful, AI is powerful, humans are powerful, and the handshake meets the algorithm. Together, we are powerful. The human AIology. And to finish on that, on blog 11, which is blog 10, is to say, stand up as humans and be the humans that we are. And that elephant in the room, will be our friend with the power and the strength, because together we are super powerful.
So I'll finish by quoting Barat in his work, AI, Man's Last Invention, The End of the Human Era. Do you believe that this could well be the end of the human era as we know it? Are we entering an unknown? And how can we know, since it's moving at such a pace and we really don't know where it's going to head? I repeat, I believe mankind is facing the battle for its soul, unless mankind stands up and reclaims its place confidently.
Fear, and more fear. That whole statement is based on fear. And the whole idea is not mankind, humankind. And I would go again to say, I've said this before, I'll say it again. As my mother used to say, and God bless you, ma'am, God, you give me so much. always to thine own self be true, and it can pass neither day nor night, that thou canst not be false to any man. Was written at a time with Shakespeare. But if we are true to ourselves as who we are as humans, then we have no need to fear, because we are empowered in our agency to educo, lead forward.
So,
QED, secula seculorum. The mass is ended. Go in peace.
Brings to a conclusion the chats on the blogs, unless a few more come out of the hat. But as I continue to chat to writers, leaders, experts, opinion leaders, scientists, educators, technologists, anybody who will talk to me across the world stage, my quest continues on the handshake. When will mankind awaken to its own real uniqueness, beauty, divinity, and infinite potential, free from unquestioning subservience or apparent subservience to the machine, packaged as progressive, sophisticated artificial intelligence? At some time in the near future, AI will most likely, as a norm, be entering the human body in the form of implants, microchips, benevolent and otherwise. AI has its place in man's advancement, but the human must retain his position, its position. Humanity must stand up. I will finish on that. Thank you, Daithí, for all the conversations. You've brought me down an avenue I'd never envisaged on the handshake.
When your handshake has wagged the dog, and the dog has wagged it, and the handshake has met the algorithm, it has been a huge privilege and an honor to find someone of your capacity and genius to be even willing in the THC to do this, because let's face it, we have given this challenge over many months and no brave souls have stood up. But listeners, the metaverse and STEAM streams education and agentic AI. Ooh, oh my God, what's Daithí up to at the moment? Migration patterns for war-torn countries and the capacity of AI to unculturally embrace the inequalities and equity. Ooh, what's the next step at this moment in time? Is it the end of the blog, or is it the beginning of a new trajectory? Well, the handshake and the algorithm, look what's going to happen now. The handshake and the algorithm are just about to rejoin. Mila Mahagud, it has been a privilege to be on this journey with you, and all I've done is share stories. We have conferences coming up very, very soon, and it is a pleasure and a privilege to be part of the global education concept. And Teresa, I look forward to seeing you in the University of Galway as we discuss the future of all of these AIs on a panel very, very soon in 2025 also. And maybe if someone's looking back at us in the future, they'll go, my God, that was 100 years ago. I wonder where they are now. And maybe we will be the, hello, how are you doing out there?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to it.